Good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to meet you. I'm Eva Liu from Cisco. I'm the QA lead for NSO Company and Workflow products, which the Workflow is a new product that announced this morning. Very excited. Um, Today, this is my colleague Mia Johnson, who is coming from Data Ductus. Today, we will be the presenters for this session. Do you say hi?
Hello.
Yes. Okay. We will dive into the critical aspects of quality of creating and cultivating a culture of quality in the development teams. Today, first, as we're moving into a most fast-paced software development world, it is super important to stay focused on the quality assurance and really promoting the teamwork within the team members. First, let me start with a question. What do you think? What is quality assurance? I'll give you some seconds to think, and I will hand over to my colleague Mia. Start with a story to cheer you up.
Yes, because I usually use an example to explain what quality assurance really is, because there are often misconceptions and everyone has their own idea of what we're talking about. So just so we're all on common ground, I'm going to share a story about my car. Because one dark Swedish morning, I started my car and I noticed that the right headlight was missing. It wasn't working. So I called to the nearest auto repair shop and pointed out my problem, and they booked the time, and that was fine, and I went there. They took the car into the garage, and I just sat there waiting. I soon got the message that they only had one headlight in store, because I had asked them to change both, because as you know, when one headlight is out, it's not going to be long until the other one is too, so might as well change both. But now they only had one in stock, so I said, okay, go ahead and change the one that was broken then. That's fine by me. And while you're at it, you can also do a safety inspection, so just to make sure everything in the car is okay. Okay, so they went back into the garage, and I waited for half an hour, and then they came back with a fixed car. So I paid and I left the garage, and didn't think more about it. It was a sunny and bright day, so nothing more about that. But then the next morning, the dark Swedish morning, I noticed that the right headlight of my car was not working. So I called the auto repair shop and asked, I pointed out that I've got my car fixed yesterday, but the one thing I was going to have fixed is still not working. So the manager said, oh, that's not good. Come back and we'll fix it for you. So I went back. They took the car into the garage. And after a couple of minutes, the repair guy came out. And he wanted to point out that the fact that he changed the wrong headlight was really my fault. I hadn't explained it well enough. Okay, so that brought me to ask, what is the reason why the mechanic feels the need to blame the customer for the error he did? And more to that, shouldn't he have detected this himself a bit sooner? Because as you know, first of all, if you're unclear about the requirement, in this case a broken headlight, you could just start the car and check, let's see, was it the left one or the right one? He didn't do that. He just changed the one he thought he was going to change. And then again, when you've done that change of a headlight, shouldn't you check that the change went well by starting the car, looking at that both headlights work? He didn't do that either. And then, of course, my mistake. I went out to the car, started it and left. I never checked that it worked. I just trusted them to do their job. So as the customer, I didn't really do the check either. But all this is an example of all the checkpoints and things we need to think about to ensure great quality. It's not just about me finding the error or him finding it at the last stage. he could have made sure at the beginning that what my expectations were and how we would meet them. So that's an example of what quality assurance really is. And Eva will take it away from there.
Yes, thank you, Mia. And this is a wonderful story and a perfect example showing how important a quality assurance culture matters. And it also reminds me that if you don't prioritize quality, it will lead to unnecessary costs, unnecessary rework, and it will lead to frustration. Apparently, that is what we are trying to talk about today. It reminds me one quote that has been said by William Edwards Deming in the 1960s. Quality is everyone's responsibility. Now, keep that in mind. Today, we're going to put that in the principle, and today we're talking about everything about this. So, the question is, now we heard what is quality, but then why quality culture matters. People are thinking about the story that Mia just said. Why there's always in the auto repair store, why the mechanic he failed to examine the problem when Mia handed over the car to him. He failed to recheck after changing the headlights, and then he tried even worse. Afterwards, he's trying to shift the responsibility to Mia instead. This is all led to lack of quality, and then and in the end, I guess Mia will not be happy with the result. You will probably not even want to continue within this store, and then it leads to loss of business. So in our development team, now we want to talk about. It reminds me a little bit of myself. A couple of days back, I was hit by a terrible backache in the morning when I wake up. It was so pain, and I couldn't turn my head around freely. If I want to look at Mia, I need to turn around like a zombie. This is all due to I have long-term incorrect sitting posture, and on long-term checking my mobile, lowering my head in the totally wrong way. But then if I had listened to my doctor's advice, I've listened to my family's advice that I do prevent gestures, I wouldn't be hit with such kind of pain, the terrible pain myself. Similar things, we wouldn't want to wait until there is problems, there is issues come from, there is customer complaint to us. Then we start to prioritize quality. Then it's too late. Oh, maybe not too late, but this is not good cycles. And then when we So when we say quality as a core value, the value that we need to share within all the teams, how can we do that? Share the value with the teams. Instead, one way is we're trying to talk the topic all the time, doing repeatedly, iteratively workshop to remind people that this is one of the core value. But rather, we would like to bring the business value, business benefit to our team members. Then team members will understand more with why we want to do this, and then they will have better cooperate behaviors into bring the quality into the center. And we down into 2 points with business benefits. That's the first, customer satisfaction. That is the key point. If the customer happy, they will branding the products and the solutions for ourselves. They will refer to more customers coming in, and which will bring long-term success. Second one is improve the efficiency. The quality doesn't mean only for the external customers, but also means to internal, to our developers, ourselves, our daily work. If we have a quality in our mind, it doesn't really mean very big things. It means it can be down to small things. If we have streamlined process, if we have well-defined definition of done, that is small steps that can keep our daily work have more efficiency. So if we now we discussed the importance, sharing the core value of the quality, we come to how. We have the what, we have the why, we have the what, now we come to the how. How we are achieving the sustainable quality goals. With the help from Data Ductus, we will mainly have 5 operational aspects that we want to address here today for how we are achieving the sustainable quality goals. Think about the story that Mia just talked about. She told the mechanic that she had one headlight not working, but then the mechanic, he knows that there is one headlight doesn't work, but he doesn't know which one. So there is clearly there are some communication not clear, and there are misunderstandings on the requirements. He knows that Mia wants to have a new headlights, but he doesn't know which one. So, which indicates in our teams that clearly understand with the requirements is super important. We promote active listening. We promote more clarifications when we got feature request. That is one key improvement point in our feature development process. We keep refining our requirements, get more understanding from what customer needs, and then we will finally deliver the features that customer really needs. Second one is establish a standard process. Again, back to the story. Even though the mechanic failed to understand exactly how the requirement works, is there still a point? There are still ways to avoid an unsatisfied customer. How? If they have a standard process, if they have the process that to do examination to verify what is the problem and then check the problem after it's fixed, if they have a standard inspection process, they wouldn't lead to the results that Mia doesn't want, or no one doesn't want. No one does want. Similarly, in our development team, we're trying to streamline our processes from the code commit, until the verification process, the release process. We streamline all the processes and standardize them. We're trying to do the work. We're trying to automate as much as we can, and avoid human work, avoid the human errors, error-prone problems. And again, the mechanic trying to shift the blame, shift the responsibility to Mia. Why is he doing that? Apparently, there is lack of quality culture. But then maybe they have kind of a blaming culture, caused him to be afraid taking the responsibilities, take ownerships. So what we do in the teams, we promote ownership. We promote people to take responsibilities. Except the fixed team setup, we have virtual team setup. For example, we have young guardians, we have performance guardians, we have security guardians. People are volunteer to take whatever that they are interested into and taking the responsibility, take the ownership to make the product, make the solution even better. And of course, customer-centric approach. And that is where we got help from Data Ductus. It's mostly is they're helping us with getting fast feedback from customers And also, we are automate some of the customer use cases, adding them into our testing process. And so every code commit into the repository has been tested with vivid customer use cases. So it's customer-centric approach in our teams, which makes us a lead product in the field. Last but not least, are we doing the perfect job? Well, there always be places, action points to get improved. There's always improvements that we can do. It's a continuous journey that we shouldn't stop at where, okay, we are in the perfect stage, we are okay, we are fine. No, we're not fine. We are fine, but we still need to keep us better. We keep doing retrospective every release, every major achievement, but we're also learning from mistakes. Like the mechanic in the store, that if they continue to do the retrospective, maybe next time, not satisfying Mia, but other one like me, if I go to the repair store, I hope that after they have the continuous improvements my side, then they will have more customers that have being satisfied. So all those points are the key points that guiding our work. That's the mindset that in the NSO development team that we are trying to do. And now we are adding workflow. Also, we are doing the similar things, just branding. So now I'll hand over to Mia to talk about the sustainable QA practice.
Yes, thank you. At Data Ductus, we have been doing different type of projects for a long time, many which use NSO, of course. We don't only help Cisco develop the product with our testing, but we also do projects with customers of Cisco based on NSO. When we do this, we of course want to work a lot with having the best possible quality of delivery. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we do that in practice. And one of the first things that we did many years ago was to establish a quality way of thinking. So what that means is that we want to focus on quality of code, quality of work, and knowledge and awareness. And those are just 3 simple points, but they actually include a lot of things. But I would say that it really starts with mindset and knowing customer expectations, because that's the key to having great quality. So knowing that you have great quality, knowing that you meet your KPIs and your other measurement goals for your testing, for example, that doesn't mean that you can just lay back and relax. You always have to be on the move. You always have to keep up with your work and improvements. And one thing that's, of course, been coming up more and more lately is sustainability. So we need to, of course, look at how can we incorporate sustainability in a more clear way in our QA strategy. And when I've looked into this, how can we do this in the best possible way in practice, not just in theory, I've come up with 4 different things that we need to look at. And that's people management. Not only are people using what we actually produce, there are also people who are working with our software. So we need to look at things like people inclusiveness and company mindset and things like that. And I will get back to that as well. Technology management, of course. Running tests, for example, is the most power-consuming thing that we do. So we need to look at how we can do that in the best possible way, in the most sustainable way. And then green coding, of course. How can our code be as sustainable as possible? Looking at code efficiency, for example, code archiving and things like that. Making sure that when you implement something new, it's testable in a good way. And that leads us to green testing, meaning, of course, that your tests should be reusable and scalable as much as possible. We need to incorporate technology management in our testing, meaning that we really use our test environments as efficient as we can. So those are some of the main points that we want to consider. And of course, we are not there 100% yet. This is a constant work in progress, but we can at least see what our goal is and what we need to work on and where we can improve. So I of course want to talk about how we in practice can make this QA strategy that we have work with our projects so that we actually change the right light bulb. We have the bad example and we want to be the good example, of course, at Data Ductus. So that really starts with mindset, and I think that's very important. And of course also methodology, which is something I work a lot with. So some simple points that we do a lot of work around at Data Ductus. I'll step to the side so you can see. We, of course, always keep developing our supporting tools and procedures. That's something that's very important. But even more important is, of course, to encourage people to have pride in high quality. And that's on an individual level, of course, as well as on a group level. You need to really feel pride in what you do and that it's done in the best possible way. We also always review our methodology. As I said, you can't just lie back and be comfortable. You need to constantly look at what you can do better. So we look at that all the time. We learn from the past, of course, looking at bug reports, looking at customer satisfaction, how well did we actually meet the customer expectations and so on. So we will use that to become better. But also looking at the future, what's coming next, what tools are out there, is there someone working with us who has know-how in a field that we want to know more about and that we can that can give us more value. Knowledge sharing, as I said, knowledge and awareness is very important in having a quality way of thinking, and sharing knowledge between each other is really important. And of course, having a sustainable approach to QA is also something that needs to be worked on and that we do constantly. So this is really the company mindset as well as a team mindset. Everyone has to have that QA way of thinking. But looking more into the actual projects that we do. I mean, we do all kinds of different types of projects with all kinds of different types of customers as well. But when we do that, even though there are slight changes between them, we have the same core with regards to ways of working. And that means working agile, that I'm guessing most of you do. We work test-driven as much as we can, looking at unit test coverage a lot, and we want to be the best, of course, when it comes to that, having really high percentages of code coverage. We look at behavior-driven development where it's applicable, looking on a use case level and looking at code coverage also on a use case level. Pair programming, not necessarily sitting in a pair, but we make sure that we do code reviews between our peers so that everyone is involved and everyone can learn from each other. Other internal reviews that we do is, as I said before, reviewing our methods, our tools, ways of working, etc. Automated procedures, part of the sustainability again, automate as much as possible, especially when it comes to regression and other things that are more energy efficient and will pay off in the end as well. We document when needed, not just because. We look a lot at definition of done. I like to work a lot with gatekeeping, so and I'll get back to that as well later in this presentation. And then change management and configuration management, of course. And the approach there is the same as having a basis for a way of working that we can change depending on type of project, but still the core is the same. So, having said that, I wanted to just dive into a little bit more detail of how we work with the culture of quality at Data Ductus, especially when you think about how we are spread all around the world in our teams. Everyone has different types of office setups. Different cultures mean different approaches to your work, perhaps, and so on. So, and I'm sure that's something everyone here is experiencing. Many companies are global at this point. And so, some hands-on tips. So, first off, ceremonies. As I said, we work agile, and I am a big fan of daily stand-ups. You can have them every other day, of course, as well. I prefer every day because I'm a control freak, maybe, but I like to have them every day because I think it's a good way to sync up and make sure blockers and so on don't stick with you for unnecessarily a long time. But also demos, even if they are internal and only for a little group, I think they're a good thing to have because you can meet those customer expectations and find out maybe how you don't meet customer expectations earlier if you have your demos. So I think that's a good thing, and it's an important one. Last but not least, I want to also mention technical briefings and meetings like that. Even if you don't have them in a separate meeting, maybe if you have an extremely complex PR you want to go through, or maybe a problem you solve that you think others may have later on, then we can do a technical wrap-up after the daily stand-up, for example. But I think it's an important thing to have. Next up, mentoring. As I said, knowledge sharing is very important. I think mentoring is important also. That pride in high quality that I mentioned before, that comes from your peers. It's a culture of quality that we're talking about. So I think it's very important to have people spread the word and spreading that will to have high quality of delivery. We also, as I said, do code reviews, and I think it's good that a code review is done by both newbies and oldies in a mix because they have different approaches and different outlooks on things. A newbie, for example, might be more prone to see lacks in documentation of code, for example, since they want to know more about it. So that's one example. Information sharing, having all hands meetings, as I said, the technical briefings, things like that is very important. If you're working a long distance, maybe you have never met in real life, and maybe you never will. Maybe it's a good thing to have some other common grounds. Maybe turn on the camera in your laptop and turn around your office. Maybe you need a heads up some days before if you need to clean up your house. I don't know, but that's something you can do. Of course, having team chats and other channels of communications is important, but most important maybe regarding that is to be active in those channels, not just set them up and say, go along and write something. You need to really encourage that they're being used. Connected to mentoring, you really want to encourage people to ask questions, because if you ask questions, you get the information that you want. But it's equally important to actually answer questions. So if you're a senior who knows all the answers, you need to be active in those channels and answer people's questions, so they will dare to ask new questions. So that's very important. Constant improvement for real. That means that, at Data Ductus we do retrospectives after each sprint. We do them after each project with some lessons learned added to that. But important with that is to actually act on the improvement proposals that you get, because if you don't act on them, they will trickle down to nothing in the end. So it's important to act on them. Have a QA strategy. Of course, that's always my approach, being a QA manager. I want to have that strategy, and we can see that there are many organizations that don't really have a clear QA strategy. We have helped some of them to get started in finding their best way of working with finding that strategy. but looking at how you want to reach that great quality, how can we work, and when you do that, make sure that you are actually taking input from everyone in the organization. You can't just sit there like as a QA manager deciding everything without actually anchoring it with the people doing the work. So that's very important. So I want to stress that. And finally, be a leader. As I said, I'm a big fan of gatekeeping criteria and stuff like that. And I have no problem actually pointing a finger to enforce it either, because I think it's important. If you have a QA strategy with goals, someone needs to actually make sure we are working in the way that we have decided. Otherwise, there's no point to have a QA strategy. So I think that's very important. So I wanted to point that out especially. That's some hands-on tips on how we do our project works. I can give you more if you find me later, I'm sure. Finally, just a short run-through of a typical DD, Data Ductus project approach, where QA is part of every step in this arrow here, and methods, ways of working are also part of every step. So starting from scoping, that can be done by our customer or it can be done by us together with them. We want to make sure that writing the requirements are done in a way that it's testable and that we understand. We don't want to be that mechanic. We want to know what we are expected to do. And we want to know that as soon as possible. So being involved in scoping, using the requirements to create testable use cases, user stories, defining tests, and then going into the coding, test-driven, looking at code coverage, doing that peer review, and all that. And when we've done that in a number of iterations, we turn things over to use case and integration testing, often done by customers because they have their own environment often and they know that best. But we always support with testing, with knowledge, with, of course, fixing tickets if there are any, things like that. And then in the end, there is a deployment, of course. So that's just a short look of how a typical project looks like. And as I said, in each step we apply quality assurance. And of course, someone like me looks at all the data, tickets, what's coming up, what's happening here, looking at the numbers. And Eva knows a lot about that as well. So you will tell us more about some numbers from NSO.
Yes. Thanks, Mia, for a comprehensive QA practice that we are doing daily. I'm very proud to say that we have 100% of test automation from the unit test, functional test, system test that helped by Data Ductus. We have a very streamlined from code push until release. So I want, in the end, but not the least, I want to show the quality improvements illustration. I want to show you some figures, some data that about some of our achievements. First of all, there is a significantly drop for the numbers of severity 1 and 2 customer found defects from the year 2019. I only tracked those 4 years, but we can see from 2019 to 2020, and then 21 there is a drop, and then 22 even more drop, and now until now 23 we see a steady drop in the numbers of significant customer found defects. Thanks to all the good work together, and we will keep up doing that, as one of the key points is the continuously improvement. And second one I want to show is a significantly patch release drop, which Frederick also in the morning when he introduced the new product workflow, he mentioned already that we have a steady, regular release, monthly release, maintenance release, which show us the predictable software development in the NSO Development Teams, which is you can see the numbers of the patch release has been significantly dropped from the year 2021 to 2022. Instead, we have major or minor release steadily maintenance releases keep up going every month. So that is some data that I want to show, and we will keep up with the good work together. So there's any questions? Oh, by the way, there is a active poll that's opening in the Slido right now. So please log into your Slido. I don't have the, but the number, I can share the number here is, just a moment. The Slido number is 3112080. It's the same Slido in the main track. We have an active poll ongoing right now. We have 2 questions that we want to get from your audience. And also, by the way, do you have any questions? I used the baby picture because we want to say that we will stay true to our roots and we will continue with the good work. Don't forget the original purpose to deliver the high quality products. Thank you.
Thank you.